Welcome, everybody. My name is Jack. I'm your DAC president. Aaron Lofton, our vice president, is also here to assist tonight. Our agenda, I'm going to share my screen here briefly. Our agenda tonight is to walk through our DAC snapshot, which we will do every meeting. Aaron has a short school accountability committee update and the work that we're doing there. And then the majority of our time tonight is going to be focused on charter work. And we will reset the table where we're at and where we're going with that work when we hit that in just a minute. And we'll wrap up tonight with any next steps. I think we'll be looking for some volunteers to meet offline to continue with the charter work. So our DAC snapshot, UIP work, the traditional DAC work is suspended this year due to the new due date that was in October. We are wrapping up the simplification effort that the board asked us to look at last year and this year. Again, that written report, our deliverable to the board on simplification is done. I promise you, you will have it via email before our next DAC meeting. We will likely take a vote on that document so that we can prepare to present it to the board. We have a tentative May 25th presentation date where we will look for a volunteer or two to appear before the board and make that presentation regarding simplification. And then our traditional DAC work, we believe will begin May, June-ish, in alignment with that new October due date for the next school year. Our charter work, due to the delay of the New America School renewal this year, we are focusing on building a new process for our group under which we will approach charter renewals and applications. We did some background work, and then the last meeting was around a site visit feedback sheet that we will use. Tonight's meeting will focus on the packet feedback document. So that's what we're going to spend the majority of our time tonight on. And then the typical DAC work, again, will commence next fall, and we will have 2 charter renewals to work on as a group. Spending priorities, we've taken a 2-year halt. We are working with the board to get the vision statement for spending priorities. If you recall and were present, we had a finance update from Susie on January 12th. We did meet with the board last week, had a pretty productive meeting about where we are as a DAC and where we're going, and spending priorities was one of the topics that we left them with, where we could use some direction so we can come back to this group and figure out our timeline for making those recommendations. And then we expect that work to begin, or to have it lined out by May for the next school year. And again, right now, we believe that work cycle will be looking out 2 budget years at any given time. Our SAC work, moving on to number 4, the statutory work really hasn't been done by this group up until last year. We had an outreach special project requested by the board. That was done, and we are currently having another outreach where our members, some of you, thank you for raising your hand and signing up to attend those school accountability committee meetings. There are 7 of those that we're going to get feedback on. And our deliverable this year is to plan what that statutory work looks like for the 22-23 school year. Aaron will have some comments here in just a moment. And then on the administration front for our group, we still have vacant positions. Aaron and I, and hopefully some of you volunteering later in the year for a membership committee. We'll do some recruiting for some specific skills so that we can get those positions filled. where people can bring their day job skills to this volunteer organization and help us move the ball in that area. That task and project work list is created. I did that last week, and we'll get that sent out. And we'll look for some hands to go up. Most of it is one time for just a few hours. So it's really a short commitment. Again, I'm a truth in advertising kind of guy, and I've been pretty conservative with the time expectations so that you can commit effectively. Any questions on where we are at with those 5 areas? All right, Aaron, I will turn it over to you for the School Accountability Committee work that we're doing. Mary Ann, this is your cue if you want to fire up your version of the PowerPoint and be prepared to share your screen. And then for everyone else, while Aaron is talking, I'm going to post 4 links in the chat for some documents related to tonight's work. Take it away, Aaron.
Great, thanks everybody. Super, just quick update. Last time we had a pretty tight turnaround on one of the signups. So we do have one more SAC meeting. We would love to have a representative participate and really look at sort of just proceedings, make up elements where it lines up with school accountability work. I am dropping the sign up link here in the chat. So if anybody is interested and or available, fortunately, the nice thing on this one, it is a virtual sign up. So should be fairly straightforward. And just a little bit more elaboration, I think, on Jack's update slide. Steps we're taking are collecting information from these school accountability committees, doing some observations, and then we'll be taking next steps from there. So that's just sort of the quick update and looking for one more volunteer to attend this meeting. So that would be wonderful if we have anybody in position to do that. Thank you.
Aaron, I just put in the chat, I can do it. 11 o'clock on March 3rd.
Correct.
Yep.
Thank you, Tara.
Yep, that's on my calendar.
Great. I love it when I can check that to-do box. Done. All right.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm a box checker too. There's nothing better. We wanted to reframe our charter work. Once again, the New America renewal that we thought we were going to work on this year was postponed. No regular traditional DAC work this year. Our special project is defining our role and the tool in making recommendations in the future. I keep referring to the 4-inch thick 3-ring binder that our members previously had to digest rather quickly and in great detail. So we are overhauling what that looks like for our group. And then through full DAC meetings, we are navigating toward a work process that focuses on the mission and vision of the charter schools and the student and family experience under the umbrella of climate and culture. Our success this year will look like having a process that we've documented that people understand, and the review documents that we will use for our responsibilities next year. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and invite Mary Ann to begin sharing.
Thank you, Jack. All right. Clean this up. Okay. Okay, so for our charter renewal process, there were a few documents that Aaron put into the chat. If you did not have links to those from the pre-work that Melanie had sent out, you'll see a spreadsheet that was created off the feedback from last or 2 weeks ago around the site visit process. We're not going to spend time on that spreadsheet today, but you'll see what I did as far as taking the information that was on the Word doc that we looked at, that you provided feedback on, and then I essentially transposed it into a spreadsheet. And so the formatting will look a little bit different, and you'll spend a bit more time in that same type of format with the renewal packet feedback tool tonight. But that'll be one of the areas we definitely want to get feedback on, if that is meeting some of the needs that came up last time we met about the documents, multiple sheets of paper, and going back to the evaluation framework. Real quickly to circle back, we talked about this last time we met. The focus for the DAC is, mission and vision and the student and family experience within that context of climate and culture, but climate and culture encapsulates a lot of things within our schools. And so that's why we're not solely naming just climate and culture as a focus, but more so the student and family experience, because that's really where we want the DAC to zero in when you're part of the site visit and renewal packet process. There's two main components that go into this. There'll be a site visit, field trip, if you will. I think one thing to name for those of you who weren't able to meet with us last time or join us is that it could be a full day excursion, if you will, to visit a charter school and be there all day. But we also might look at, breaking it up and thinking about how else can we maximize your time, the charter school's time, when they're having, say, like a parent meeting, or, the school leader just has more availability to dedicate time to a Zoom interview. So that field trip may look a little bit different rather than just one full day dedicated at the school. But the DAC will do a site visit, and then the district review team will also be on site at some point in the fall, doing a review as part of the renewal. And then the other piece is the renewal packet. And that's really where we're going to spend the bulk of our time today. If you took a look at what Melanie had shared late last week from New America's packet, that isn't even the full packet that they had submitted. And so there's quite a bit to it. And so one of the things we want to think about tonight are what are the right parts of the new renewal packet for the DAC to engage with, to really, ascertain and speak to the mission and vision and student and family experience. So we'll be looking at those pieces as well tonight. So 2 goals, and we'll have the Jamboard. So what else should be included for the tools for DAC members to engage in this process? Is this packet enough? I know one question that came up last time we met along was also the timeline, and people feeling maybe that there wasn't, the timeline wasn't set up for success in the sense when the packet might, right now we have a 12/1 deadline, but per district policy that charter schools that are going through renewal must submit that renewal packet. Site visits may well happen before then. And so we're working on that internally of, do we need to consider a different timeline or breaking parts of that up as far as when they're due, but just know that is a rub that came up. And then other feedback that you have about the indicators, guiding questions. I want to underscore, by no means is anything finalized or a perfect product. These are very much, works in progress and are meant to be iterative, both for this work this spring and also as we're moving forward into the fall and with future renewals. All right, so we have a body of evidence. I'm a visual person, so this helps me kind of put in my mind exactly what's all going to go into this. So there'll be a renewal packet that a wide range of district folks will look at. Dave Baina's on the call. I'm sure Dave will be weighing in on some of the assessment pieces specifically when we look at these renewal packets with our charters, just like folks in student services or finance. Then there'll be a site visit where we'll look at really specific things at the school. And then DAC site visit and renewal packet review are the other really significant portion, because the last piece, there might be follow-up based upon site visits or interviews that we ask the charter for more information around. But really, those are things we wouldn't forecast or know until we get into the fall and start doing some of these practices. So these are the 3 main items that are going to factor into that renewal recommendation that we ultimately make to the board. I'll pause there for a second. Does anybody? I think we had a couple. Okay, Erin shared a few documents in the chat. Any questions? All right, so feedback tools, you can always come back to these, take a look. One thing that we do want to have alignment or keep parallel as much as possible are what are the documents the district folks will be using and the documents that DAC will be using. Indicators, guiding questions may look a little bit different, but the format, the larger buckets where we're looking at evaluating that are aligned to the 5 board priorities for charters, those will be consistent across all those tools. So for tonight, we're going to look at the renewal packet feedback tool. Hopefully everybody had a chance to take a look at the document that Melanie had shared out with the New America's renewal packet. When we break into our groups here in a little bit, we'll have about 40 to 50 minutes, depending on how long it takes to get into the group. Some people come back together, but if you need a few minutes to review that, you could definitely utilize that time. But just to name, we aren't factoring in a review of those 4 pages as part of tonight's work time. And then as you're talking through with your group, we want you to capture that feedback that you have on the Jamboard. And the groups will be split up, myself, Erin, Jack, and Priscilla. Each one of us will have a group, so we can help talk through questions that might come up around the tools or some of the, the thought process that went into some of these practices that we've put forward to get your feedback on. All right. So with that, we are going to move into breakout groups. I'm going to stop sharing here. And let me. I don't know if I have the capacity or have the capability on my host functions to do the groups. Jack or Erin,
I already have them set.
You do, Jean? Awesome. Thank you so much. So everybody hold tight. While Jean's getting those set up, just so you know, again, I previewed the 40 minutes. We want you to spend 10 minutes, and we'll add time if we need some additional time. We want you to spend the first 10, 15 minutes really just talking about the feedback tool itself. And then we'll move to the other, larger chunk of time to really think about those indicators and guiding questions. And like, based upon what you saw in the renewal packet, does this mesh with that? Is this going to give you what you need to inform, provide feedback, inform what you feel from a recommendation standpoint and considerations for the board and for the district team?
Great. Thank you, Marianne. We are going to break for about 10 minutes. We'll come back together, see if that was enough time, if we need a few more minutes, and then we will re-break out into the same groups to hit those questions again. So Jean, we are ready. Aaron, Priscilla, and Marianne, we found we needed some more time. Does that resonate?
Yeah, it does.
Can I actually just do a quick process check? I found we were definitely getting sort of oriented and trying to do some of the application components. Are we good just to head kind of into our work session and then come back and like share out? Does that make sense process wise?
And just debrief the whole thing with it in the next 30, 40 minutes, whatever we set.
Yeah, Erin, can you give me editing rights? I only have view only on the Jamboard.
Oh, that would be me.
That would be Jack. Sorry. I was
Okay.
scrambling, Priscilla. I'm like, I don't know who else is on this message.
I just need a copy, so we're good.
Yeah, usually I am the Jamboard girl. Usually that's me, not tonight.
Okay. Jack is the Jamboard boy. Can I have editing rights?
It should be good. Before we go back into the rooms, can you try it real quick?
It is still telling me that let me try to refresh it. There we go. Thank you.
Access. Thank you, Jack.
All
I'm
right,
good.
Jean, we're going to break back out. Let's go for 30 minutes.
That sounds good.
Great. Thank you.
See you all after a bit. Do we have everybody?
Looks like we do.
All right, so we're going to take some time and have each group share out takeaways, things that resonated, didn't resonate, like burning questions they were wrestling with.
Jamie is going to speak for group one, but at a high level, we wanted to jump into editor mode and we specifically chose not to. And so there's a recommendation, maybe some people would want to do that or have some district staff folks go through and just edit down the language a little bit.
Yeah, so one of the other concerns that was expressed in the last meeting that continues to be an issue is kind of the timing of site visit and packet, and the fact that we have questions that kind of ask us to relate what we're seeing in the packet to a site visit that very well could happen months before receiving them, and the ability to really coordinate those two things and recall the information. I think looking at potentially combining the two tools and just being clear, like which of the elements for the areas that there is real overlap and some comparison between the two, having those kind of on a tab together, potentially color coded or something that, you know, that has you thinking of both of those things together as you're doing one or the other. And then I think the last big one that came out was kind of the fact that the SAC piece feels like a really big chunk of potential work, but it doesn't look like there is currently an opportunity to visit the SAC or observe the SAC in the site visit kind of component. And looking through the packet, there doesn't seem to be a lot that addresses the SAC in the packet either.
Thanks, Jamie. Group two.
Do we have somebody who's willing to try and synthesize? I did not do my good facilitator role of asking for a reporter. I'm glad to do that because Jack's been doing most of the whole group talking today. So you guys will help me if I miss anything here. Big things for us, we really were trying to make sense of some of the alignment. There seemed to be some process considerations about, and this came up with the site visit as well, about level setting, getting consistency on sort of how ratings are arrived at, what those look like. Again, not unlike group one, concerns about sequencing and sort of the dependency of these questions on the site visit as opposed to the packet, and sort of the challenge of that. Two sort of potential structure questions related to the tool itself. One is around evidence, and how do we describe like what led to that rating so that we make sure it's not just like a one-off isolated incident, or is this actually built on sort of a body of evidence that led to that rating? And then a really good conversation about, there might be some issues that just come up as reviewers, and especially folks who are not education, like deeply embedded, like, hey, this seems like a concern, this seems like a concern, but not it, you know, trying to square peg round hole that into the tool. How do we create just a parking lot or a place to capture those so they can be part of the discussion of the review team and can be resolved? So those were just some structural things. And obviously it seems like that's being echoed by others. Team, anything else of note? No, okay. Okay.
Thanks, Erin and team. Group 3. Does anybody want to go? I'm happy to synthesize if you like. Okay. One of the things that we did talked about at a high level of, is this rubber stamp or not, or does this get away from that? And so being able to speak to strengths and areas of growth, you know, within those different buckets, people said that would help make it feel more valuable. They're actually like a value add to this process and contributing to those considerations and the recommendation versus just like a yes or no, this is right. We talked a lot about, I think, around the formatting piece, and Rochelle and Dave had some good insights from some of their previous experiences or current work that Rochelle does with titled programs about like, what are we asking for? Is this in place? And then like, where would we find this? Where do we see this? And part of that was, is this a way to like streamline the potential 190-page renewal packet or whatever that may be? You know, how do we actually make this more user-friendly for everybody involved, from the charter putting it together to the end user? And like getting that physical evidence, but again, in a way that is maybe not as overwhelming, but people have a clear idea exactly where to go to find that information. And in that conversation, that tension a bit of like, if I'm doing a site visit and I want to find that information, being able to have that there and know where to go. And if you don't have the renewal packet or that timeline, like there just could be, that there could be a potential for conflict in that. We did talk a lot about too of the like inter-rater reliability, and even like without even numbers, just what does it mean to be on track? What does it mean to not be on track, partially on track? And I think like within that, probably some more just a norming we can do around what does it mean to be an objective observer and reviewer? You know, and then like leaving my, sorry, I was distracted by the chat and little kids. To leave some of those pieces aside, like how can I separate personal beliefs and those things with what I know to be what I'm looking for and determining that on track, off track, non track. And then I think another piece that came up earlier was also just, it was nice to have like, these are the 4 pages to review for tonight, because this is where the information is going to be. And just making sure some of that work's done ahead of time if we're going to have like a larger renewal packet. Otherwise, you don't want to be sifting through pages trying to figure out where to find that information. Team, anything I missed there? I'm going to add. All right. Priscilla, I think your group is up.
Sorry, the baby did distract me. I will be the first to admit it. I'm sorry. Meeting yesterday, it was a puppy, and you are so lucky, and we're lucky that you got lucky because she is adorable.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I also did not do a very good job of being a facilitator because I didn't get a reporter either. So I will take one for the team and they can correct me if I misrepresent anything. We had very similar conversations to the other groups, talked about formatting. We appreciated the fact that Marianne really kind of took the feedback from the last meeting and you could see that it was incorporated. We believe that probably some further work can be done just in maybe adding bookmarks so that people know where in the renewal packet to go to find certain things. I'm wondering if we might actually even be able to link certain things so that it would make this more user-friendly for folks. I think that there's still some work to be done in the alignment of language. Sometimes we kind of got a little confused as to really what is it that we're asking for. We also had quite a bit of conversation around the SACs, and do all of our charters really have a designated SAC, or are many kind of like our neighborhood schools where they end up having their SAC and their PTO being the same group because they have such a small number of parents who are willing to be involved. And the way it's currently formatted, are we really kind of dinging the charters or holding them to a higher level of accountability than we are our neighborhood schools? And whether that was really fair or not. Let's see. And then we talked about the fact that really we're going to need some more specificity just in the timeline of like, how much time is it really going to take to review one of the packets? And then how much time will lapse between the review of the packets and actually the site visit, opportunities for calibration. So if I can only go to one site and Lynn is actually going to the other site, is there some assurance that she and I are looking for similar things? So just some things like that. We feel like we're making progress, but we've got a ways to go. Anything my team would add?
Thank you all so much for this feedback. I think it is aligned and will help keep, like Priscilla just said, keep this work moving forward as we continue to build and revise these processes. Jack, did you want me to share for the last few slides? Do you want to? There's a next step slide.
Yeah, this will just be collaborative. I think looking at the time, we'll actually be able to excuse folks early tonight.
Marianne, can I ask a quick question?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I assume, right, in the application or renewal, whatever the school
They produce. Yeah.
Right, there's typically an application of what they need to show or questions that they have to answer. Is that correct? Like if it's a new charter, there's a whole big thing, right? And then for renewals, obviously a little bit smaller, but my assumption then is that these packets particularly are aligned with those questions. Is that right? Like the kind of questions that they're answering, because they have to show it in their application process, not the interview process, but like whatever those questions are for many areas, that these indicators that are here and the questions that you've asked are aligned with that. That's my just assumption.
That's correct. I can show you real quick. It'll just take a second. So this document, I have not come back to this in a little bit since we've gone and done some work with the feedback tools, because I wanted to focus on that work and then come back here. But the theory, or in my mind right now, what charters will do is see this process document. We will meet with them before the end of this school year. And one of our two charters for sure, I think both of them, but one for sure is already starting to plan for their renewal. Honestly, they're starting to think about what are we going to put into the packet and starting to compile some things, or, pinpoint what those things are going to be. But they'll be able to come here and say, this is the format at this point, not that it can't change. And what I did is I literally took the 5 board priorities for charters and added an introduction. And then within it are just kind of stock things that would fall into those, like, what is your school programming? And so charters will be putting this together. So it's meant to, like, they'll have this guidance, but then they would also have the feedback tools that we're working off of. And maybe this will get blown up and we won't even need this and they'll just use a feedback tool. I think that's a question we'll have to answer. So they know, like, what we would like to see in their packet and then what we're going to be actually looking for. And those obviously should go together. To be a bit metacognitive, some of this stuff like compliance, charters we can pull some of this on our own. So I think, like, internally, we just have to decide how much, do we want to have them just present and take legwork from, our own staff versus stuff that we can pull up on our own if we want to. A UIP could suffice for a lot of this stuff, maybe not. And so to kind of speak to that question, though, they do have this of, like, these are the things we want to know when you put together your packet. And those really should mirror what we're going to be looking at when we go do these feedback tools, whether it's the DAC, what you guys would like in this climate and culture piece here, like they need to put their handbook and those things. Or if I'm a district reviewer, like Lori Bailey and her team, if they're looking at discipline and attendance, then, they can come to this section and be able to speak directly to that information too. Is that helpful, Tara?
Yes, sorry, I realized you probably couldn't see me. Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. Okay.
Any other?
Might actually be. Oh, sorry.
Any other questions or comments? It sounded like there is one.
Yeah, Marianne, what might be helpful is we might take a couple of these different documents and sit down and kind of crosswalk them so that we can do some linking or some benchmarking
Yeah.
so that it's a little bit more useful for the DAC as a whole, because I think it can get kind of cumbersome and they can kind of get lost in the different pieces of language.
Yeah.
And I think what Tara just brought up is a perfect example of that. It's just a lot. It's a lot for folks to digest.
That is a fantastic segue. Thank you, Priscilla. The next steps do include finalizing these two tools based on the feedback that we got. That feels like an outside meeting and extra work that we are going to lean on the DAC members to help perform. Those of you that had charter at the top of your preference list will be contacted, but we are looking for volunteers who would want to engage in this work outside of these regular meetings so that we can be ready next year. We'll also address how we prepare as a group to do the work so we can do it effectively, determine who is involved in the site visit. If you recall from the last meeting, there's some concern about inundating a particular school with a number of DAC members, whether it's a separate visit or along with the district visit. And then who, if not the same people, who would be involved in the packet review, and what does our timeline look like? I don't think there's going to be much movement in the deadline for the renewal packet of December 1st. That comment was made, Marianne, I think you might have been the one to make the comment at the last meeting that the charters want to get their own data from October and be able to compile that and report on it and be able to do that by December. So moving the due date up isn't necessarily workable.
I socialized, I did socialize it with them this week or last week during our monthly meeting. I think they felt that perhaps November 1st could be doable. I think they felt anything sooner than that, just starting of the school year, October, and some of those, and data that we won't yet have until in the fall, would make it challenging to put forth what they would want to put forth in that packet. That all being said, I think one consideration could be there's stuff that we're asking for, like the introduction and reflection, that really shouldn't have any contingency upon some of those things in the fall, right? Like in theory, they should be able to produce that. Not, I wouldn't say quickly, but that could be something you could work on now before October count or enrollment or any of those things happen. And in a lot of respects, as far as the mission and vision. So I do think there's an opportunity as far as parts, and there are a few districts who have some of that. The model renewal packet for the state through CAXA does that. They have a part 1, part 2, and then a final draft, the final thing is due. So I think we have some opportunity to be more flexible to support all involved and support our charters. Because if they have an opportunity for early feedback, they could capitalize on that. And I think that could be fortuitous if utilized.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that I have everybody back on my screen, if there are any volunteers to do some of this outside work related to charter, could you raise your literal hand or your figurative Zoom hand so I can catch your name? I'll give that just a few seconds. Michelle, thank you. Lynn, thank you. Christy, thank you. If you've raised your hand and I haven't said your name, speak up, please. I don't want to miss you.
Yeah, Jack, I've raised my hand. It's a little brown hand in the corner.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of hiding in that picture frame there, Tara. Thank you. Or anybody on the phone. It looks like we've got some folks with cameras off as well.
All right. We really appreciate you volunteering to do this work. We will be in touch about what those next steps look like and the timing of that work. We're grateful, truly grateful for people stepping up and helping shoulder the load here. Marianne, anything else before we wrap up? Priscilla, Dave?
Yeah, I just want to echo thank you.
All right,
Yeah,
then
and
we're going to get out a few minutes early. Good night, everyone.